the info session for the Inclusive Leader at UC Davis Continuing and Professional Education. We're excited for you to meet program staff and hear from one of our instructors. And so, just to give you a sense of what we'll be talking about in today's session, we'll talk about program staff. I'll make it clear who to reach out to if you have questions following today's session, but we will also leave time for questions and answers at the end of today's info session. If you think of them as we go, feel free to put them in the Q&A box or the chat. We do have one of my colleagues monitoring the chat, and we'll make sure to keep track of all your questions. We'll also talk about our team of instructors that I'm really excited for you all to work with. They're all great. And then we have one of those instructors joining us today. We're very lucky to have Kristen Bennett. She'll give you a little preview and talk about her perspective on the content and the curriculum so you can get a sense of what the Inclusive Leader is all about. Then I'll come back and give some program logistics, how much it costs, when it starts, things like that. Again, if you have any questions, you'll know who to reach out to. Spoiler alert, it's me. And so then we'll leave time at the end specifically for questions and answers so that you can actually ask them live. I think this is a great opportunity to ask Kristen since she's joining us today. So I'll go ahead and move to this next slide here. And at the top, you'll see the information for our student services team. So after today's information session, if you're ready to enroll, you can go directly to the website, or you can reach out to student services by email or phone and enroll that way. If you want to learn more about the program and you have questions after today's session, my email is there. Again, my name is Vincent Chang. I'm the program manager for the Inclusive Leader. I'm also excited to introduce you to the Director of Business and Leadership Programs, Jill Parrish. Jill, hi.
Hi, good morning. You mean you don't have like a team of people behind you who are going to answer all the questions for everybody? It's you, huh, Vincent?
Yeah, they're actually hiding behind this green screen right here.
Well, they're in the boat. We can see like the River City.
Yes.
Right there. They're just hanging out there. Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jill Parrish. As Vincent said, I'm the director of the Business and Leadership Portfolio here at UC Davis Continuing and Professional Education. And today we really just have kind of a brief introduction to this really, really cool program that we are going to kick off this spring. And I'm so excited. This is really a passion program. I think everybody that's involved, we have these meetings about it and we get so excited because we really know there's so much opportunity to make a difference in this space. You all know that right now diversity and inclusion is an incredibly hot topic for all sorts of reasons. And we really wanted to put a fresh perspective on this as far as what can leaders do in this space? What can we do in our workplace? Sometimes it feels like overwhelming, like there's just so much. And we really wanted to be able to work with leaders and give them very specific tactical tools that they can make a difference in their workplace. And we always try to think, you know, if we can make a difference for one person, then maybe today that's okay. And that's sort of where we're going to go with this. So I want to introduce our instructors here. We have a really, really great group of instructors. One thing I just want to point out, and I want to make sure everybody knows, is that this program is not sit and lecture at you. This program is about conversations. It's about relationships. It's about skill building. And we have hand selected each of these instructors because we know that is how they teach. We're not interested in someone sitting in front of a classroom or in front of a Zoom camera talking at you. And so we have Kristen Bennett, who I'm going to introduce her in just a second. She's here with us today. I met Kristen, I think like 2 weeks into this job, and I was like, oh, I need to be her best friend. She is amazing, and you'll see that in just a moment. We have Lisa Montanaro. Lisa Montanaro is actually an attorney. We don't hold that against her though. And she has extensive experience in this space, as well as she's got the legal background. So she's really gonna help us kind of be our subject matter expert around some of the laws and the policies and things like that, that we really do need to understand in order to be able to enact change. And then we have Corey, and Corey's terrific as well. Corey is also one of our instructors here at UC Davis. She teaches allyship, and she's going to teach storytelling. Corey has been in this space for a very long time. And again, she's very interactive, very dynamic, just a really terrific instructor. And so what we're going to do today is Kristen is going to talk to us a little bit about some of the concepts, some of the content, some of her thoughts, which are great and on point. Kristen and I and Vincent will meet and we start talking about this stuff and all these concepts, and we get so excited. And so we wanted to share some of that with you today. So Kristen, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to let you share all of your good stuff with us. How's that?
That sounds perfect. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yep, you got it.
Perfect. Okay. So just to piggyback off of what Jill and Vincent were saying, this program has been designed very intentionally for a very specific audience. And when I'm saying specific, I don't mean, just leaders who have the title of a leader, just directors, just managers, just supervisors. We at UC Davis believe that leadership is not a role or a title. Instead, leadership happens in your heart. It is a conscious choice that folks make to show up and contribute to their greatest potential to make a difference. And so because of that, I don't want anybody to say, well, my title doesn't officially name me a leader, because with this series, all of you have the capacity to be leaders. And if it's okay, I want to just share a little bit of the thinking behind putting this program together. So we have been hard at work at UC Davis to do a lot of training recently. I mean, we've always done it, but in the last 2 years, especially related to diversity, equity, inclusion, bias, cultural competence, and humility, and all of these things for a variety of reasons. And what we're finding is that the learners that are attending these trainings are like, this is great. This is really great information. I'm able to see now where I might have some biases or some old practices that I have been using in the workplace that are maybe not as effective as they could be. And maybe it's time for me to update my skills and my mindset in a 21st century workplace. And so while the information and raising awareness around our perceptual filters and the unconscious bias that we use is helpful, a lot of folks have been saying, great, and so now what? And so because of that, we believe that most leaders possess a desire to have more inclusive organizations, right? They want to contribute in a different way. But I think that many people are quietly struggling with not really knowing how, knowing where to get started, knowing what they can actually do. And so we wanted to give people some tools and go beyond just, so here's the information, and actually help and give them some the knowledge, skills, and resources that they need in order to make a difference here. So with that, the goals, overarching goals for this series are the instructors really want to work with the learners to help them discover that creating a culture where everyone belongs is going to require each and every one of us to harness our ability and our responsibility to make sure that other people feel welcomed, valued, respected, and heard, and that they have opportunity to be able to share their strengths and talents in the workplace. We've been hearing on the news for, it seems like the past year, about the Great Resignation as a result of this pandemic. Folks are grappling more and more with, is this job really for me? Is this what I want to do? Is this what I want the dash on my tombstone to be filled with, at the end of my days? And more people are saying, I don't really think so. The work that I'm doing, it doesn't really feel so good. And so I want something that's going to be more fulfilling. So though we may not be directly responsible for each and every employee in our organization, we definitely, want to retain and attract top talent and make sure that people have what they need so that they are contributing in ways that are meaningful for them. Through this series, we're also going to learn what anyone can do to leverage their privilege on behalf of those who may not yet have an influential voice as well as being a part of shaping the solutions. Privilege is a really interesting and important word to be talking about in this conversation. But I think that learners will be surprised at how we have reframed privilege. I don't know about any of you, but I've noticed that it seems privilege is one of those words that's causing folks to cringe right now. They're not really sure how it fits in the workplace, and it's making people feel really uncomfortable. But people will learn that privilege is really just having a different level of strength or access or influence. And so because of that, anybody can leverage those strengths to be able to make a difference for other people. And then finally, we're going to work to gain the knowledge, skills, and tools that are needed in order to create change on both an individual level and an organizational level, no matter what industry you work in. So for those of you who are saying, it's way too big, there's no way that, just me, just one person, just one team can make a difference here. But we're going to talk about both, right? What you actually can do as an individual person, or if you are higher up in the organization and do have ability to have greater influence or impact on the systems and structures that exist within your organization, we have something for you too. So a little bit of something for everybody. So with that, I want to give you a little bit of a variety of what we're going to be talking about. And to start, if it's okay, I want to offer some definitions so that we have a common language and vocabulary so we understand what it is that we're referring to. So DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. You've been hearing about these things all over the place, and I would imagine that some folks are defining them differently. So I wanted to just kind of start there. When we're talking about diversity, all we really mean is ways that people are different. For those folks that are looking into whether they want to sign up for this series or not and think that this is just going to be a conversation about race or gender or any of the traditional things that people might automatically think to about how we're different, it's about so much more than that, because we know that in the workplace, there are so many more layers and dimensions of diversity that present themselves, right? There are, different education levels, there's different familial status, there's even different communication styles. And I don't know about the organizations that you all have worked in, but what I've noticed in the places that I have worked is that sometimes it doesn't feel like it's necessarily about just race or gender and the things that the systems that are kind of keeping us in the same place. Sometimes it's, I communicate in a different way than the rest of my team. And so maybe there's a lack of trust that I'm going to be able to get the same result. So we'll talk about things like that as well. Then there's equity. So equity, all we're meaning when we talk about equity is fair treatment and access, opportunities for advancement for all. And a simple way to think about equity is that a person's identity cannot predict their outcome or their overall trajectory within the organization. And finally, there's inclusion. When I'm talking about inclusion, all I mean is that a variety of people have access to power, have access to having a seat at the table, and have a voice that is heard and are able to make decisions in the space that they take up. And so we talk about all of these things, and there are so many folks that want to have a conversation about diversity. And through this series, I want to do something a little bit radical. I actually want to encourage folks to stop talking so much about diversity, because for one, I think that the word is misguiding us. And two, and probably most importantly, our brains actually don't care. Let me explain what I mean like that, because I know that some people are sitting there like, what? Well, like that's a little unconventional. So the data would indicate that about 99.9%-ish of us, so let's just face it, that's pretty much like all of us, right, have some sort of unconscious prejudice or bias against people who we perceive to be different from us. Different can mean a variety of things, as we've already mentioned. And, there's no judgment, right? Because some of you are, I'm sure, thinking like, no, I've done my work. I'm not prejudiced. I'm not biased, but hear me out. There's no judgment here, because that prejudice or bias actually comes from our limbic brain. Our limbic brain was developed during cave people days, right? And in those days, if you were out and maybe hunting and gathering with the rest of your tribe, and you ran into someone who looked a little different from you, this would be very concerning, right? What? Who's that? What are they doing here? And please don't take my food, right? We'd be a little bit scared if we ran into someone that was that much different from us. But we don't live in cave people days anymore. Actually, now we live in a more modern world where we come across differences or people differences all of the time, right? We are continuously surrounded by people who look differently from us or act differently from us. And so we're okay with that. So though with our mouth and in our organizations, we might be saying, we want more diversity. We want to invite more diverse groups of people into our organization. The truth is, our poor limbic system is like, okay, but please not too diverse, please not too diverse, please not too diverse, because it makes us nervous. But on the other hand, there is equity, right? Equity, we are wired to care about. And by equity, what I mean is being treated fairly. And so when we were putting this series together, the question that was really interesting to me is, so what does our brain think about equity? One of the more interesting studies that I have come across, this is probably one of my favorites. It was a study to test what does our brain think about equity, and monkeys were used in this experiment. And so how it works was there were two monkeys who were both taught a trick. And as you can see, they were taught this trick in a cage directly next to each other where they could see one another. The trick was the scientist would hand the monkey a rock, and if the monkey handed it back, it was given a reward of a slice of cucumber, which is a great reward. The monkey was very satisfied with this. So it went on, handing the rock back and then giving the scientist the rock so that it would get a cucumber. In phase 2 of this experiment, the first monkey would be handed the rock, perform the trick, and get cucumber. But the second monkey, when it performed the same trick, it would be given a grape. Now, I don't know what you know about monkeys, but monkeys love fruit, love it. And so grape is a much better reward than cucumber. So let's just play this out. Imagine and think about yourselves and being at work. Imagine that you're at work and you're sitting next to someone who's doing the exact same work as you, but they are getting a better reward. How would you feel? Some of you are sitting there like, oh, that sounds awful, or, oh, that's happening to me right now, right? So let's just see what the monkey thought about this.
Getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again.
So the poor monkey is calling her union rep as we speak and is having to access the employee assistance program because this is obviously very, very traumatizing. So like the monkey, we too innately understand how to spot even a glimmer of injustice, Experts theorize that we are hardwired to scan for inequity and injustice because it's linked to survival. As a matter of fact, another thing that I found interesting, so I learned too that on flights where folks have to get on the plane and are asked first to walk through first class and then end up at their seat wherever they are seated, not in first class, there's a 4-time higher likelihood of air rage than there would be for folks that don't first have to walk through, where they're seeing the nice blanket on the seat and all the snacks and the reclining chair, 4 times greater likelihood, right? So we talked about our brain and how we look for injustices and why would that be? Again, some of the experts are theorizing that in the early days, during cave people days, that looking for inequity is linked to survival. Think about it. During cave people days, if you were out and doing work with your tribe and hunting and gathering and doing whatever it is that you needed to do to survive, and for 2 or 3 nights in a row, you came back to the cave at night to eat, and you were given less or no food for doing the same exact work, that would be an early indicator that your chances for survival were slimming and that you better do something and do it fast if you were going to make it through the winter. So what does that tell us? What does that mean? Why does our brain even bother to scan and protect for a sense of equity? Well, what it means is that equity is categorized as a core need. It's a core need. And when folks feel like one of their core needs are being threatened, it pushes them into a state of stress. If folks stay in a state of stress, that's a tongue twister, a state of stress for a long period of time, what we've noticed is that it causes inflammation in the body. Now, inflammation has been linked to things like heart disease, cancer, a lot of very, very damaging and horrible things on the body. So what it means is that it's not just a nice thing to do to have equity in our organizations and to be inclusive leaders. What it means is that equity, or a lack of equity rather, is really linked to lower life expectancy. Equity can be a determining factor of our overall health and well-being. And if that's not a good enough reason, I'm not sure exactly what is. So, but we keep talking about diversity. So again, I told you that we were doing a lot of training related to bias and all of that. And so when we started to put this series together, we thought, so what's the next thing? What should folks actually be looking for? And we had an aha. Diversity is really just only a metric to understand if equity is actually happening. But what we really want and where we hope to get is inclusion, equality, and belonging being the result of equity happening. So how do we get there? What do I mean by that? So this is an example of some of the conversations that might be had, or maybe how traditionally people will look at diversity and equity within their organizations. So let's just say when people are doing a scan of their organization, they notice that there are about 4% of employees that are people of color, right? 4% of employees are people of color. But when we look at the national average, we notice that about 30% of the US population are considered a people of color. So that would mean that our organization and the demographic of our organization does not necessarily match up with the US numbers. So a lot of organizations will start there and say, we need to increase those numbers. let's say over time that we're able to make changes in our hiring practices and what what recruiters are doing, and we're able to get our employee numbers to match the US population numbers. So we have 30% now who are people of color working for our organization, which matches the national demographic, where 30% of the population are people of color. So can we stop there? Some organizations will say, yeah, we did it. We got it to match. But we actually can't stop there, because what we know is that that doesn't give us the full picture. It doesn't give us any indication of who's getting promoted, if people are getting equal pay for equal work. We don't know if people are being treated well when they get there. So if equity is the core need, why is it that we continue to talk about diversity? I think that the answer is it's safer. It's safer to want to talk about diversity because all it really implies is a wish to invite more types of people into the organization. And inviting people isn't really hard, right? I mean, I can do it right now. Jill and Vincent and Lupe and all of my friends who are joining this info session, you are all invited to my house this weekend. Why don't we say 5 o'clock? I'll have chocolate cake. It'll be amazing. You're all invited, right? You're all invited. Everybody can come. Who we invite into our organizations and onto our teams and into our neighborhoods is a really, really important first step in being inclusive. But it says nothing about the way that we're going to treat people once they arrive, right? And so this work really has to do with changing how we treat folks when they arrive and changing our old brain, right? And so what is it we're going to do? How can we change our old brain? What is possible? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this series. What is it that we can individually do? How can we actually do it? And what can I take away right now and start to make changes that really are going to make a difference for folks in the organization? The main model that we're going to be talking about throughout the course of this series is this inclusive leader continuum, because what we know is that diversity, equity, inclusion, there are so many elements and so many layers of that. And because we're all different and have different strengths, the reality is a lot of us are going to feel more comfort talking about and influencing some things than we will others, right? And so we'll take people on a path of discovery with this continuum. We hope to help people move from being unaware in phase 1 to being more aware, to actively participating in making changes, and finally moving into phase 4, where people feel like they can be an advocate and advocate for more inclusive systems and organizations. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm sure there's a ton of questions. I'm happy to answer anything, but that's what we're focusing on.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing your insights on that and sharing a little bit about what people can expect in the inclusive leader. Let me go ahead and move back to the PowerPoint here. And then Kristen, thanks again for joining us today. She'll stay on. So if folks think of questions, we'll come up with to our question and answer session in just a little bit. But I did want to go over sort of program logistics. So the Inclusive Leader will run from March 3rd to May 13th. That's online with 8 live class sessions over Zoom. So you can treat it as a virtual classroom, and you can join that Zoom from anywhere. And it's 5 full-day classes, 3 half-day classes. They sort of meet sort of every other Thursday, but the full schedule is on the program website. And if you would like a link to that, I'm happy to follow up with you on that. There's like 2 morning half days, 1 afternoon day, and then the others are sort of 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. But like Kristen was saying, this program is designed not just to give you information about equity and inclusion, but tangible strategies that you can apply to your workspace right away. We want to make sure that the program is filled with those takeaways and things that you can really use in your day-to-day. So the program cost is $2,995. But with that, on this next slide, I do want to talk about discounts, which I know is something of interest to a lot of folks. So if you're a member of a professional association like the Sacramento Area Human Resource Association, with that professional membership, you can get 10% off of tuition. If you enroll in a group of 3 or more, maybe you have friends or colleagues who are also interested in learning about creating an accessible and inclusive workspace, the group discount is 10%. If you enroll early, so if you enroll at least 2 weeks before the program starts, again, that's March 3rd, 2022, there's an early enrollment discount, which is $50 off tuition. And then we do have 2 information sessions coming up. There's one in January and one in February. And if you go back to the Inclusive Leader website, you'll actually see that those are live right now. So if you attend either of those 2 sessions live, then you qualify for a $100 discount code that's emailed to attendees who don't just register, but attend those information sessions live. And we'll go into more detail about the Inclusive Leader during those 2 info sessions. Unfortunately, UC Davis doesn't allow us to combine or stack discounts, but you see you have a lot of options here. And I'm happy to talk to you about where you could find the greatest savings if any of these interest you. And so I want to leave this slide up. Again, this is our student services information at the top. You can enroll through them or you can enroll online through the website. Again, the Inclusive Leader begins on March 3rd, 2022. And if you click on that course webpage, you'll have you'll get to see the planned schedule with all the dates and times. And then finally, I want to leave this up. This is my contact information. You can email or call me, and I'm happy to talk to you and follow up. But while I leave this slide up, I want to open it up for questions and answers, especially because we have Kristen here, so she can help answer any content questions that you might have. Ooh, I see they're coming in here.
There is a question I want to address quickly. It says, is it a program that can be done by contract with an organization? And that is absolutely yes. We often have organizations who send team members and want to pay on behalf of those team members. We can absolutely do that. That's not a problem at all. Oh, one other question I see. Will there be future offerings of the course? Yes. So great question. We do hope that this will be at least an annual program. We may opt to run it twice a year, depending on how many attendees or participants we get. We do want to keep it a smaller cohort, no more than 30. So if we have a lot of interest, we could very well open a fall cohort. So yes, thank you for asking. We do definitely want there to be future offerings of the course.
Thanks, Jill. I think on that note, we are always looking to improve our programs and help them grow. And so if you have thoughts or feedback on what you'd like to see, definitely feel free to let me know. I'm happy to pass your feedback on to our instructors.
I see a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead. That's it. Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to read, there was a question about the UC Davis staff discount eligible for this course. And I believe so. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I was looking at that too. And I was thinking that we will have to follow up on that because there is definitely a staff discount, but I don't remember off the top of my head what it is. So please go ahead, and since that's an anonymous person, just go ahead and email Vincent. His email's right there and we can find that for you. Next question I see is, does the program address regulatory and compliance components? And it does. So we're not focused on that necessarily, but we absolutely know that that is a key piece, right, of making change. And so that is one of the main reasons, well, she's terrific anyways, but why we have Lisa Montanaro as one of our instructors, who is an attorney, does have a lot of experience with that. And she will be teaching a class. There is one of the days is specifically on laws and compliance pieces around equity and inclusion.
And EEO.
Sorry, go ahead, Kristen, go.
I was going to say, and the EEO component. Yes.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then I see a question, retired from a leadership position in public safety. Is this program a good fit for a retired leader? And I am going to say absolutely. And I think Kristen touched on that at the beginning. It's really important to us that we're not necessarily just catching people who might have that very typical leader. I'm a manager to 8 people, etc. We really feel like anybody, we feel like leadership is holistic. You can be a leader in any role in your life, whether or not you actually have people who specifically report to you. And so it's really important to us that we touch people in all areas of life, because we know we can make a difference anywhere we're at right now, right? It doesn't matter necessarily what our title is, what our role is, what our job is. The more we have these conversations, the more we educate ourselves, the better our communities are going to be. So I would say absolutely. I don't know if Kristen or Vincent, if you want to touch on that at all either.
I would love to just add to that. So Deborah, yes, 100%. And, you know, we have never met before, but I will say, as someone who has worked in the public sector for almost all of my life, here's what I know for sure. Whenever I am promoted, or when I, am given some sort of stretch assignment, or just something new, or I'm struggling with something difficult, almost always have I reached out to someone who was a mentor or a previous boss, or someone that I find to be inspirational, or someone who has really just helped me along in my career. And I reach out to them because I trust them. If you've retired from someplace, you know the ins and outs, you know what it's going to take. And so I'm going to go out on a limb and just say, I would imagine that people are probably reaching out to you too, in some instances, right? As a prior leader, someone that they know and trust, someone who got great results. And so for you, if you were interested in this, I think that what you might be able to take away is just some advice to be able to give folks, some new tools, strategies. You can help the people that are coming to you for advice from work, or even just in the social spaces that you occupy now, because leadership needs to happen in this space there too. And I think it's admirable for some of our retired leaders to demonstrate, you know what, staying the same, staying static, staying with the things that, have got me through 30 years of a long career. Maybe it's time to take a look and update those and see, like, some of this stuff was really great, but in what ways can I update my leadership platform so that I am even more effective in this ever-changing world? Along with that, I want to mention that this isn't, Vincent talked about it in the beginning about this not just being lecture. We are giving everyone, after every class, a literal blueprint for what it is that you can do to really start to move the needle on being a more inclusive leader. It's part of our transfer of learning strategy, so that people will literally have a page of ideas that they can go log off of Zoom and start to implement right away, regardless of how ready the organization that they work for or the community that they serve, whether they're ready or not, we can still have impact. So I hope you do decide to register. Thank you.
See how great she is? So great.
It's easy. We have a great team, and this is a really great topic. I'm really excited about this.
Oh, this is a good question. Okay. Does this program address leading people in different environments? Our organization has many leaders who lead people who are in the trades out in the field, like utilities and construction. And this is a great question. And incidentally, we had a conversation with one of our clients recently about this, who is actually the Public Works, a city Public Works. And I think absolutely, Kristen, I'll let you, kind of lead on this as well, since your answers are so lovely. But I think absolutely, and really what our goal is for this program is that for each person who's there, we want them to make this the most useful thing to them. And so when we get this cohort of folks, we absolutely will know where you're at, what are your goals for this program, what are you hoping to do? And we absolutely plan on kind of tailoring our conversations around that as well. So Kristen, I'll just let you touch on this as well.
Yeah, this is something that is exciting because we take it into consideration for any of the programs that we develop. And I think it comes from experience. Again, currently in my role, I work in a Bay Area city. And so with that, similar, you offer leadership training, and it's not just folks that come in, with a jacket and a tie or a dress, and it's not leaders looking in the traditional leadership way. I have folks that are coming in and they're wearing, Timberland boots and vests, and they're leading people too. And so what I've noticed is that this isn't something that can be prescriptive, right? Like, this is the one model that's going to work for every single organization and every single team, because we know that that's just not true. I've had people before who've challenged me a little bit and said, you're talking about giving feedback, you're talking about feelings, and that feels a little too woo-woo. If I go out and tell my guys we're going to talk about feelings, they're going to laugh at me, and like, it's never going to get anywhere. And so because of that, we have designed a ton of different tools that people can use, but also we're going to be having open and honest conversations about how to make them adaptable so that they fit for your audience. We don't want anybody to go out there and feel like, this really isn't for me. We have something, regardless of what type of leader you are. And we'll talk a lot too about organizational role and the level of influence or area of influence that you have. So definitely, we are talking about leadership in a variety of forms. Thanks.
Such great questions. This is getting me so excited because I just know the conversations are going to be so rich. Just with these couple of questions, conversations are going to be so rich, and really looking forward to this. All right. Any final remarks, Vincent, Kristen? Any folks out there with final questions? Turn it back to you, Vincent.
Okay, thanks, Jill, and thank you so much, Kristen, for answering those questions. You all came up with amazing questions. If you're someone like me, then you'll think of 50 questions right after today's info session, but that's why I'm available. I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat. I know it's on the screen too, but for those of you who like to just copy and paste it so that you can save it somewhere, that's my email. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the program. I'm happy to pass your question on to Kristen or our other team of instructors and get that answered for you. So keep in mind that the program starts March 3rd. We will have 2 more information sessions in the new year, so look out for those. I believe they're January 20th and February 2nd. You can attend either one or both if you're really excited about that. We're happy to see you. Those are available on the website. I'm also happy to follow up and share with you all the link to that. So thank you all so much for sharing your time with us this morning. Thank you to Kristen and Jill and Lupe for monitoring the chat and technical assistance. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Happy Wednesday.